Without any further waste of time, I'd like to invite Mr. Ramanathan to make his keynote address. Mr. Ramanathan.
Father Frazier, Naresh, Imtiaz, Gerard, various other alumni of various Jesuit programs both in Mumbai as well as in the Western Zone. There's lots of reasons for me to be here today, and I just want to highlight a couple of them. One, of course, is Gerard and his indomitable perseverance. He got in touch with me more than 3 months ago, and therefore eliminated at least one reason for me to say no, which is that there's too little time and there's too little notice. But secondly, and this is more important, the reason for me to be here is also personal. I am a student of the Jesuit program from Bangalore. I did all of my schooling in Jesuit schools. I did my pre-university in a Jesuit college in Bangalore, 11th and 12th, before I went to Pilani. My wife, who is not a Tamilian, she's a Gujarati, but also a second generation Bangalorean, is also a product of the Jesuit school program, Sophia's in Bangalore and then Mount Carmel College in Bangalore, before she went on to do other things. So what we are today is completely influenced by the experiences that we had in the Jesuit program through those first 15, 16 years of our formative life. So we are deeply grateful to the kind of ecosystem that the Jesuit structure has created in India. And so for me to be here as part of this program with such an interesting idea, I think is a nice privilege. So thank you for inviting me. I have, to your unfortunate dismay, I have a whole hour to speak, but I won't use up all of it. I'll keep some of it for open answers, and if you need to move on with your program, you can. But I think that this is an incredibly important occasion for a number of reasons, and I'm going to start with my personal experiences. Swati and I are products of middle class India. We don't have a background in politics and social change, none of it. My father used to work for the railways. Just before I was born, he decided to quit and start a small business in Bangalore. And he chose to do it in Bangalore because his father threw him out of his house in Chennai. No self-respecting South Indian Tamil Brahmin will ever start a business, at least in the 1950s. And so he said, if you want to start a business, you have to be out of Chennai. So that's how he moved to Bangalore, and that's where I was born and brought up. Swati's father was, for opposite reasons, moved to Bangalore. But neither of us had any exposure to social change. The only things that we ever heard about issues were, when I was growing up in the 70s, heated conversations over the breakfast table about emergency and whether Indira Gandhi was right or wrong. But it was all in a very removed way, as though we were, we were just audience watching this drama of democracy and social change being played out, not that we had a role to play. And that's exactly how life was, even as I went to do my undergrad and then went overseas. Both my wife and I went overseas in the late 80s. Again, very much driven around personal improvement, whether it was education or whether it was professional or financial. And our life in the US was very similar to that of most NRI couples. We spent about 10 years overseas. We worked hard, we struggled, we studied, and we achieved some success as a result of it. But along that journey, something magical happened to us, which is, for all that we criticize the US for, the one thing that we don't understand about that society is the extraordinary spirit of volunteerism that they have there. So when we first lived on the East Coast, most of our life there was in the tri-state area. It was in Connecticut, New Jersey, New York. We would always keep getting our mailboxes, there would be some colored sheet or the other, which would say, we're doing something in the local community, come this Saturday, come this Sunday, volunteer. And we would promptly put it in the dustbin. Because we said, who had the time for all this? 5 days a week, we are really working hard. Saturday, Sunday is the only time we get off for each other. So that life carried on like that. We moved about 4 or 5 years into life there. We moved to Connecticut as our financial position improved. And within a couple of weeks of moving into Connecticut, we got a similar flyer in our mailbox saying, we're cleaning up the local park this Sunday, come in your, worn out clothes, we promise you beer afterwards, and so on. So Swati and I looked at each other and said, who wants to clean the park? Isn't that the responsibility of government? But since we had just moved in, for very, very selfish reasons, We said, let's understand who the neighbors are, let's meet the neighbors, this is a good opportunity. So we went to that park on Sunday morning. Nothing special, there was somebody who had a rucksack, there were some pitchforks, they told us, okay, clean up all the dry leaves, do all this. 2-3 hours we did that. At the end they gave us the beer as well. But all in all, it was a nice experience, nothing great. Until Monday morning. I used to take a 6:30 train from there to New York in the morning. So standing on the train station platform, when standing next to me where Imtiaz is sitting, I saw the guy who was the head of the park cleanup operation. And he was wearing a suit just like me, reading the Wall Street Journal. So I went up to him and said, wait a second, aren't you the guy, yesterday at the park, you were the one who led the... He said, yeah. So I was astonished. I thought this was some NGO tree-hugging activist who cared about environment, and this is what he did for a living. And so we spent the entire train journey, about a little over an hour, talking about this. And it was like a third eye being opened to see how important he took his volunteering. That this was something, he was working at Bear Stearns or Merrill Lynch, I don't remember now, quite a senior guy. But this is what he did every Saturday, every Sunday. And once that box was opened, it was like discovering a whole new world of hundreds and thousands of people who took involvement and took action in local issues. They were on the school education board, they were on the health committee, they were on doing this, doing the what's called the soup kitchens on weekends, feeding the poor. And they took their volunteering as part and parcel of who they were. And so when Swati and I asked ourselves, we said, how come we have never been like this? It's not like we're bad people. It's just that that aspect has never been nurtured. It's never been opened up to us as a possibility. So once that got created, there was no putting it back. In fact, it got to a point where we realized this was not just social work. This was actual grassroots democracy. Because as this person got to know that we were interested, they exposed us to others. Every year, believe it or not, in most towns in America, this happens. When the budget of the municipality is created, when the local county budget is created, in schools, in colleges like this, in the evenings, the halls would be full. So I remember going and sitting in the back on one of these sessions, and the corporator, the councillor, what we call the corporator in Mumbai elections, he would stand up and say, he's the head of the finance committee, and he'd say, okay, I'm going to now invite Naresh, who's the volunteer co-chair of the finance committee. Naresh, by the way, works for Citibank or Bank of Boston or whatever. He would come up and he'd say thank you, and then he'd present the entire budget for the county, and he would say, this is the plan that we have. This year we managed to collect $6.2 million from property taxes and so on, but the capital requirements are 8.2 million because the Parks Committee has said that they want to put new toilets, whereas the Health Committee has said they want this, and the School Committee wants computers, so we have to decide. So can we please have a vote? And they had a vote. Average citizens like you and me, participating in local issues. And then he would finish, then the Health Committee would come, and exactly the same thing. And this was happening across America, every day, every year. So we said, my God, we're carrying around this caricature called democracy in our head about somebody called a politician and we good citizens sitting in our houses and complaining about things. It's just what we have in our head. We need to change this entire thing. We've got to go back and make this happen in India, because all the great stuff that's happening in that country is because somebody put that platform together. It didn't happen by magic. God didn't ordain this. Someone did it. They did it 50 years ago, 100 years ago. So it is the obligation of our generation to come back and make the same thing happen. It might not have the results today, but it certainly will set the stage for the next generation. So that was what motivated us to come back. In 1998, my wife and I gave up our careers over a weekend. This had been just eating away at us to say we'd come back. We wanted to be professionally secure and financially secure, which we have. So for the last 14 years, we have lived a life of no monetizing our time. We've been giving something back. And it's been an incredible journey. And I just want to share a couple of examples of this, more to illustrate the power of individual action. And before I go ahead, I want to make one request of each of you. Please spend, as I am talking over the next 10 minutes, think about things that you have done in your lives, in your communities, in your work, in your neighborhoods. Everyone, many of us, has done something. Something small, something big, something in our association, but we've done something. Something that's touched us, which we've acted upon. I'm requesting you, please think about that and be ready to share it, because at some point in the next 10 minutes or so, I'm going to ask you to please share it. Because frankly, that's the theme of this session. So please start thinking about those experiences. In about 5 or 10 minutes, I'm going to ask you to share it. We came back to India with 3 conditions. My wife and I were in extremely high profile jobs. And so we told ourselves when we came back that we can't just do this at the age of 34 without some kind of a sense of what we're going to do with our lives. So we gave ourselves 3 conditions, or 3 what you could call sets of a framework to think about what we would do coming back to India, because we had no idea what we were going to do. The first is that we would work to make an impact on a massive scale. This was not about affecting the lives of 100 or 200 people. This was affecting the lives of millions of people. Number 2, that we would work on urban issues, on transforming our cities. This didn't mean that India's villages didn't have problems, but we are children of our cities. We grew up in our cities in India. We've lived in cities overseas, and we've seen the possibility of what great cities can do. And we felt that that's what we wanted to work on. Doesn't mean that rural areas don't have problems, but let's focus on issues that resonate for us at a personal level. And number 3, that we would use our skills and our professional competencies. My wife has a background in planning and design. I have a background in banking and finance, and so we would use those. And that's what we did. We came back to India, spent a year going around because we didn't know anything, meeting friends in NGOs, meeting people doing social change. And now it's been 10 years since Janaagraha has been launched. But I want to share just one experience in 2004. We've had many failures, many things that haven't worked, some successes, things that have worked. And in every one of the successes, at the heart of it has been the fact that people cared, that people wanted to make a difference. In 2004, after these experiences, when the UPA government came into power, we went to Delhi because we felt that all of the experiences that we had accumulated over the 4 or 5 years after returning to India showed that the national government has to do something about urban transformation. And it's happened across the world like this. In the US, it's happened like that. It's happened like that in European countries. So we needed the Union Government of India to take an active step. When the UPA government's manifesto came out, we saw that there was no place for urban. So between 2004 July and February 2005, we went and pounded on every door in Delhi. The Ministry of Urban Development, the Ministry of Housing and Urban Poverty Alleviation, the Planning Commission of India, the Controller and Auditor General of India, the Prime Minister's Office, the Parliamentary Standing Committee of Urban Affairs, to say, how can you not do something for urban India? And out of that discussion came the genesis of a mission called JNNURM, the Jawaharlal Nehru National Urban Renewal Mission. Because at that time, the Union government was announcing NREGA, which many of you may know is the National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, the National Rural Health Mission, Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, which is the National Rural Education Mission, the National Rural Horticulture Mission, the National Rural Literacy Mission. Everything was rural. So we said, how can you not have even a single mission for urban India, which is the flywheel of your economic story? 65% of our GDP comes from our cities, 2% of our land mass is in our cities, and over the next 20 years, 300 million people are going to come into cities, most of whom are poor. How can we not have something substantive for our cities? And in 2005 February, the Prime Minister of India, they had, by which time, and this is the beauty of a democracy, you don't need to have connections, you don't need to have any linkages to political people, nothing. It is the power of your argument. Everybody we spoke to gave us a hearing, heard us out patiently, and they said, yes, what you're saying makes sense, let's do something about it. The mission of JNNURM got crafted. It didn't exist in July 2004. By December 2004, the mission had taken shape. 100,000 crores over a 7-year period, out of which 50,000 crores would come from the Government of India's share. In 2005 February, on the eve of the maiden budget of the UPA government, there was a final meeting called in the Prime Minister's home office. He has a beautiful home, and it's a magnificent home office conference room. They had invited me as well as someone who had been the catalyst of this mission. So it's a U-shaped conference table. There were about 50-60 people sitting there. I was at one end of the table. We had the Prime Minister, the Minister for Urban Development, Montek, and so on and so forth, other members of the Planning Commission. The presentation was made saying, this is the mission, sir, this is what we want to do, 7 years, Government of India share, and so on. And so at the end, Prime Minister said, okay, so what is it, what do we need to do now? And some IAS officer said, sir, we just need your okay, because the finance minister at that time, Mr. Chidambaram, he's going to put his budget together in the next couple of weeks, so once we get your okay, we'll include it. He said, acha, theek hai. And then a mischievous IAS officer said, sir, but just one point, sir. This is a state subject. Cities are a state subject in our constitution. So it's under list 2. So sir, we haven't consulted the state governments on this mission. So, so Prime Minister said, acha, theek hai, why don't you arrange a meeting between all the chief ministers and me, and we'll have a conference, and then we can take it forward. Acha, theek hai, sir. Sir, but budget session is just going to start. So I said, okay, budget ke baad karo. Okay, this happened in 2 minutes. I was sitting at one corner listening to this, and I said, whoa, what happened here? Because imagine the consequences of this. The first budget of the UPA government, where all the flagship initiatives are being announced, if you're not part of it, that's it. Nobody is going to say in 2006 that you announced one more mission. That means basically it's dead. So Montek saw me from across the room and he said, Ramesh, you have something to say? So I said, I put on the mic and I said, you know, everybody here is older than me. Everybody is wiser than me. But I just want to speak honestly as an urban activist. We have seen constantly, and just then SM Krishna had lost in Karnataka, Chandrababu Naidu had lost in Andhra. I said, we have seen that, you know, there is no political will for urban issues. In fact, some people say that being pro-urban could be not good for political careers. But what is it that we are asking for here? And I laid out some of these statistics. And I said, here is a sector that is the sunrise of India. Here is a sector on which everything that is going to happen to the future of India is going to take place. All our aspirations, all our hopes, all the economic possibilities, all the rise out of poverty. And what are we asking for? 7,000 crores in this year's budget, when NREGA has got 15,000 crores. The Rural Health Mission has got 10,000 crores. Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan has got 10,000 crores. For 7,000 crores, I am sorry to say, I see the same lack of political will in this room. So there's a deathly silence. The Prime Minister looks at Montek and said, announce the mission. And when the meeting got over, the Joint Secretary in the Prime Minister's office, who's in charge of urban issues, came out and told me, Ramesh, you just saved JNNURM. And as a result of it is where they asked me to play this role as the National Technical Advisor to the mission. And when I got that invitation, I said, this is a pro bono role. I don't take any money for it. We are not consultants to government. It's completely a labor of love. Now, the reason I shared this is because when we came back to India, we had nothing but a dream. And the dream is far from complete. Every day I wake up and say, have we made a difference? And the answer is invariably no. Because nothing much has really changed. But that shouldn't stop us from doing the little things that we can control. And this is what I wanted to end with and open it up for some discussions, which is, we have a tendency in India to want all these romantic ideas about big movements. Oh, Anna Hazare came, but look at him, what happened? He got politicized, he went off and did something else. So what? He did what he was supposed to do. What are we doing? Why do we want big movements? When this session ends, when this conference ends, and it will end in the next 6 hours or 8 hours or one day, what are you going to do? What am I going to do? Why can't we do the little things that matter? Fix something. Feel a sense of completion that I did something. We're all racing off to save the Alaskan whale when we can't fix the neighborhood school. So please, and I absolutely believe through the last 10 years of doing this, that the magic is there, that we do care. Ideas are floating around in every bus, in every train, in every chauffeur-driven car. So this is not about poor or middle class or rich. We all care. We just don't know how. We don't know how to take that first step. We feel afraid. So my submission to you is, the way out of that fear, the way out of that sense of feeling uncomfortable, is through networks like this, is through alumni associations. Think about what made today happen. How did this come about? I was talking to Jerry and asking him, so why did you all decide of go social? And he said, well, we were thinking every year there's a conference, we organize conferences very well, and then between conference 1 and conference 2, nothing happens. And we all know that. Everybody sitting on this dais, all office bearers, everyone who's ever been active in anything knows that it's bloody hard. Because it's easy to do things for myself or for my family. It's very hard to do things which is about something else. So they have put this together. What is the power of this Go Social? What is the power of this technology and so on? It is that it recognizes every single idea. Nothing gets lost. Because it is like rainwater harvesting. Every little drop gets seen on that platform. You can share it. You can inspire someone else. And that someone else can connect, can ask you lessons, can share their experiences. So this whole business about social media and social change, and in the last 2 years, by the way, we've created a platform. We've created 2 platforms which are leveraging exactly this. And there's been enormous learnings. One of them was the partnership we had with Tata Tea called the Jago Ray campaign on voting, which was an extraordinary learning for us. And last year we launched something called IPaidAbribe.com, which was about using the power of technology and social media to address retail corruption. Today, 1 million hits. 1 million hits. 20,000 records of people saying, I had to pay a bribe for getting a birth certificate and I feel miserable about it, and somebody else is learning from that. So, my request to you is, all of you have come here today out of some sense of connection to the JAI. Please invest in that connection, and the simplest way to invest is by sharing your stories, sharing your experiences. Whether it's positive or negative, it doesn't matter. It's about something that you did, it is authentic to you. Let's stop talking about or reading about stories of something that happened to other people in other societies. How amazing that Obama won. That's fine, that is Obama's story. Let's talk about our stories, how we made a difference. So, can I request you now to please, I still have some time, I hope, of the slot that's been given to me. So I'd like to open this up to listen to what we can share so that this acts as a trigger for the rest of the day to follow and tomorrow. Is that okay with you? Yes, sir. And what I would request is, many of you are older than me. Please give me the privilege of being the moderator, which means we can keep it tight, short, so that we can move from one experience to another. Is that okay? Great, thank you. So do we have a mic? Great.
Getting involved, I mean, it was great what Ramesh spoke about, and it's a great thing of us saying someone else is doing for us, government or whatever. In the areas that we live, here in Mumbai, I'm talking about Mumbai, we have things like the ALMs and the LACCs. I'm talking about this because I've been involved in them for the last 10 years. Guys, get involved. We can do something. I've been moderating ward number 97 from the last 2 terms. We've got a lot of things achieved. We don't get everything done. Out of about, say, 100% of things that we ask for, we get 5% done. Okay? The things that you can do right outside where you live, the footpaths that you live on. Yes, I do get calls in my house, I do get guys coming to my house, I get guys trying to do various things. But if we stick together, we can get things done. We're not being bad or we're not trying to throw people out from anywhere, but let your voice be heard. If there are enough people who get up and do this, we can make a change. I'm telling you, we can make a change. We have, I won't go into details. So I'd like you to actually, if you can add this as one of the social stories that you pick up on this platform and tweet and hash, because otherwise these are just instruments. They have to come alive with real stories. So that's great. Can you share one example of the 5% success that you talked about? One example? See, I live on the road called St. John the Baptist Road. It was very peculiar. We had 2 different councillors on that road. One was the Congress guy, and one was the guy who was supported by the ex-Congress corporator but who turned against Congress. To get the development of that road done was a real task, because everything that would be proposed would be negated by the other side. It was real persistence with our committee for the last 6 years, that we got water problems, the drainage problems in the road sorted out. The road still has to be asphalted, but the 2 footpaths on either side, we got the last one done just before the last election.
But the drains got sorted and you've got
yes. Something that was leaking for about 20-25 years, we saw water gathering, it was sorted out in this last 6 years. So we are again ordinary middle class people, we are not something very big, no political background, nothing. But with persistence, you can get it done. You can get it done. Believe me, you can get it done. Wherever you go.
Thank you. Thank you. Can I have number 2?
The Exhibited Association's President. I have 3 achievements. We have a very big subway, underbridge subway near our railway station, like you have in Milan subway. But that subway is very big, and the stations, the railway station is above the subway. So all the trains, they halt over there, and there are around 4 or 5 platforms there, and around 12 tracks on that subway. So that subway is very, very long. Because the trains, they stop there, all the toilets and everything, they fall down in the subway. I was complaining to the railway authorities, the municipal corporations, and etc. etc. And then they replaced the iron beams, and they put it with the concrete slabs over there. So now that sheet is not coming down. Secondly, that subway has become very dirty because of these things. So I complained them to fix tiles on it, the granite tiles. Now those granite tiles are fixed on that walls of the subway. And the subway being so long, during daytime also it was very dark. So now they have put up the lights. I suggested them to put light there which operates during daytime also. So that now those lights are also operating during daytime.
That's fantastic. 3 fantastic successes.
And there are many beggars, and they were also sitting there in the subway, and they were selling drugs over there. So I complained to the police also. Now those people are also not seen there. Municipality was always going sprinkling the DDT and everything over there, which was very harmful to the people going there. Now that DDT is also not sprayed there. Instead, proper cleaning is done. One more achievement just outside.
Let's stop with the subway.
Okay.
Because then what we can do is, if you can get the other successes and put it on, that would be great.
I'll
just to keep the momentum going.
I complained about this island which was too big for the traffic. So they made it a smaller one.
So my request to you is, it's great, the stories are fantastic. If you can have 3-4 more people come and join you, then we can go from I to B, and that would be just multiplier effect.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Can we go to 3, please? Number 3.
St. Xavier's and the back. This is part of a community work that you mentioned also, that you also got. All this, first of all, I would like to thank my Jesuit education and also the Jesuit Alumni Association, from where I got the motivation now. The Prime Minister, as you say, and the governments, all, they announce various schemes. This is the scheme for the poor, this is the scheme for those. I picked up one of the latest schemes, that was the Prime Minister's Yojana for higher education, especially for the physically challenged and the students who could not afford higher education. In our community, what I found lacking was, people announce, yes, this is for minorities, this is for minorities or minority languages, but people are not aware. So I took up the challenge of reading the whole thing, taking out the forms, getting copies of the forms, meeting the persons whom we have to submit the form, taking out the prototype of the form, filling up the sample form, and the copy of the exact Yojana. And I travelled to almost all the Gurdwaras in Gujarat with a group of people. We had 4, now we are more than 50. Gave a set of all the forms, set of this example form that like you have to fill up like this, whom to meet. Sometimes you say, okay, I want to take this loan or having to take the benefit of the money. 500 crores. Imagine 500 crores was sanctioned in the Prime Minister Yojana, and my community 6 did not take 5 rupees. Because 2 years we were not knowing. People were not aware. So suddenly this is...
It's an absolutely outstanding example of how you don't even need to initiate something on the ground. Just acting as a bridge of information, of letting people know how to fill up a form or knowing the schemes can make a big transformation. Thank you so much, sir. It was super.
In my neighborhood where I live in Bandra, my colleague mentioned about ALM's citizen group, we get together and we have planted in the past 3 years close to 50 trees in our neighborhood, in our by-lanes. That's one thing what we try to do. I also encourage my children, those one is in 4th grade and the 5th grade, to come so that at an early stage they get to know about civic awareness and civic issues. Secondly, we try to keep our lanes clean. The DMC does their job, but we also encourage people who live in apartments, flats and good bungalows and to keep their neighborhood clean. Sometimes in a good car, a decent car, people throw and litter, which is not fair. And the last thing what we try to do is, because Bombay city, a lot of people from all over the country come here, and ALM is what you mentioned, as well as the civic authorities, they try to evict them. Some of the vendors have been there for the past 30-40 years. So we try to bridge a gap, and it's a socio-economic problem. Let them live, let them survive, as well as we keep our neighborhoods clean. And I think it's bearing results. Since I've got the mic with Father's permission, I have a question for you, sir. When the Janaagraha campaign was...
Can I request one thing?
Quick
question for me, we'll hold at the end. Let's have the sharing.
Fine.
So this time I'm happy to answer questions.
Fine, sir.
Great.
So this was our experience, and more and more things are happening.
Fantastic. In fact, what you've shared is only